This film was produced by the Traveller Primary Healthcare Workers in the Tipperary Rural Travellers Project. Primary healthcare workers are members of the travelling community. They have been trained in outreach and support work to help improve health and well-being of travellers. According to the All-Ireland Travel and Health Study, more than 36,000 travellers live in this country, but many still face the discrimination and difficulties with their health.
If you're a traveller, you cannot change it to turn into a settled person. What's in you is in you, that's it.
That's the thing we ever had was a house and car and a caravan. House-drawn caravan, that's what we're reared in. We're brought up inside the road indoors. I mean, the our whole life, that's all we ever had pinned in. That's taken away from me, the same as they're taking away our life.
Back in the 1970s and up to 79, all our lifetime, we had kept horses and travelled around in wagons, cars. We had no motors, only horses.
The stress in the travelling community now would be basically saying we're discriminated everywhere we go, you know. We're not like it. We're like by our own people, kind of, you know, but we wouldn't be like we're set people.
Yeah.
So basically, pubs everywhere, like, you wouldn't get that public. You might get to the adult public if you kind of keep your head down. You wouldn't be able to go up with the fellas you had around. You wouldn't be able to go up with traveller fellas. Like. Do you know the way set people go up in a group with their friends? You wouldn't be able to go up in a group with all your cousins and all. Like, otherwise you're getting refused straight away. But yeah, that's a big issue there around the travel community. Like, that causes a lot of depression and stress and mental health. Like, because if you don't get the public and you don't get the public, you're going to buy a few slabs. Like, and then when you buy a drink, then you end up buying drugs, and then it just goes on and on from there.
At the high identity in school, we have friends and we get treated right. You can't let, children in school, you can't say they're travellers because if they do, they're pushed one side and they have no friends. I mean, there's a lot of discrimination there and it's overlooked. Yeah. And there's no one doing anything about it. Getting took out of classes where there's 20 kids, but the travelling children's getting took out, brought to a different room and given colouring books. Yeah. How are they supposed to move on in life and become anything when they're not getting teach proper in school?
Travellers suffer worse standards in physical and mental health than any other group in Ireland. The Tipperary research has shown that this is connected to living and social conditions. The poor physical health is linked to poor accommodation, low income, lifestyle and barriers to access and services.
Yeah, but the conditions like that the travelling people is living in. And at the moment what we're living in, we're 20 years like living in one spot and never offered a house. And all the kids getting sick and things. My son next door to me, and he had 4 kids, and they're very sick at the moment with throat infections and ear infections and stuff like that. And even my husband suffers a lot of depression as well.
If you look at it in terms of the provision for accommodation is one. I'm just going to pick out accommodation as one particular issue. And there's no funding, the government is stating that there's no funding neither for the settled population or the travel community. That's fair enough, right? And they say, we'll give you an alternative, right? So you have particularly young families who are in crisis that have nowhere to live. The sites are full, so the sites that the actual travellers are living in at the moment are actually full. So they say, we'll give you another option. Now this is particular families that are really, really at crisis issue. We'll give you a rented accommodation. Rented accommodation and travel families can't get it through discrimination and racism. We've worked weeks, days, 24 hours, 7 days a week to try and get families, a rented accommodation on a short-term basis, and that cannot be found. And would you blame a lot of young travellers to be, addicts at the moment? If you've nowhere to live, and you are suffering from discrimination, and you have very poor education, and you're living in poverty, there's no wonder that young travellers and older members of the travel community are suffering from mental health and who have addiction problems.
Poor mental health is linked to the denial of identity, low self-esteem and discrimination. This can lead to a range of other problems such as drug dependency, alcohol abuse and domestic violence.
Right, say if someone has depression, they walk into the doctor and they say, oh, the doctor describes you have depression, I'll send you to this person. That traveller person don't know where to go, who to go to. Like they need to know where to go, how to get to help, and to know where the opportunities and all this and that is. So if I was suffering depression, be honest, if my doctor said to me, oh, I'm going to send you to a nice woman now, I'd be ashamed of my life to walk into that building in case another traveller see me.
Yeah.
Because they'd make out, oh, she's going mental, she's going mad.
The council is trying to take the horses away completely from travellers, but it's not going to happen. Because if they were to leave and if they were to go out on the side of the road, that's their whole life, is their pony. That's causing a big health issue. It's a big health issue because all they have to do, that's all they have, is to go out and feed their pony and come back in. They have their times for that. It's just like a clinic appointment. They have that. That's the truth of God I'm saying. It's like a clinic appointment that they have. I know my husband, for genuine, and I know everyone. He goes out at 8 o'clock in the morning. He'll go out at 5. He'll go out at 7:30 before he go to bed. That's 3 times in the day he does that. That's his routine since he was 16 years of age. Now Tom is 56 years of age. And he's still doing that up to this day. Them horses get took off at Tom. That's a big health issue for him. That's all he has is his animals. And it's bringing the travelling community down into nothing.
If they took our horses, we'd have nothing more while living for. That's all we're really living for, is we have our animals, that's all we have. So just like a farmer brought his cattle, he had his land there, but it's the same thing to us with our horse. Our horses mean more to us than anything else.
You know what, like, within the travel community right now, from my opinion, right, the majority of people that suffer with depression within the travel community is men. Yeah. Because I think there's more on, like, all the responsibility of a family is always, the man is always seen at the head of the family, right? And like, even at the moment, Brian, right, there's so much of a big thing about the horses and the bylaws of the horses, right? It's seriously driving men into really depressed, right? For the simple reason, right, they're not willing to give up their livelihood. Do you understand what I'm saying, right? They're not willing to give it up, right? But there's so much pressure put on them now, right? There's so much pressure put on them now, right, that they're actually getting physically sick.
You talk to traveller families, no matter what age, you know, the horse owners, particularly, you know, young or old, you can almost see, you know, that physical almost contact between the people and their horses, that clearly, you know, if that's not facilitated in some way, that it does have an impact, and clearly has to have an impact. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but when you can certainly see the relationship between, and not just I think in terms of the travel community, but I think anyone, you know, who has a love of animals and horses in particular, you know, there is almost a soothing effect of the horse, even if it's just purely on to calm somebody down or to relax somebody. So I can imagine somebody who's grown up with that, who's grown up with that in terms of owning horses and being reared with horses, that there's clearly a connection. And if you do break that connection, if you don't facilitate it in terms of accommodation provision or other provision made, that can only have an impact on your health. They can only have an impact on, I think, on your physical, but certainly on your mental health.
Cupcakes are having a huge effect on services being delivered to travellers, especially to travellers in more vulnerable families. Physical and mental health are very much connected with each other.
With all the travelling communities, I don't think that really the hospitals or the GPs understands the travelling community.
And then when we do the training, you know, we would give our input in how we thought that the travellers could make more use of the services. But then we had the services coming back, and we had services saying, we'd have people saying, well, look, I'm dealing with a family. You might have someone did you know that would say, well, I'm dealing with a family at the moment, and this family I have met once, but I have sent out 20 appointments, and the family has never followed up. I don't even know where the family is. And we'd say, this is what we'd say. This is the role of our job. This is what we do. If you can work with us, right? If you can work with us, we can work with you, right? But we can't work separate.
You know, if we look at statistics that says, I think it's 78% of travellers are unemployed. And that's due to the lack of education, opportunities,
and other factors. If you were to look at all them issues, accommodation, health, education, and no proper access to services in relation to knowledge, information, discrimination, all that has a huge effect on mental health and self-worth of the traveller community. And if the traveller community don't feel self-worth. We look at the traveller community and we look at their survival mechanism in terms of all the government policies that has been passed, through. I can only go back 60 years in terms of documentation and anything that I saw on TV or whatever. I would see us as survivors. We are definitely survivors.